Hello everybody and thank you for joining me. This is Ciara from Ciara T Designs, and today I have a video for you on the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. So let's jump right in. So to start, I do have a full card front piece of cardstock there. It is A2 size, so 5.5 by 4.25, and I'm just going to do my oxide blending. I do turn it sideways because I find that easier for me when I'm doing a landscape card. This isn't a portrait card, as you would have seen from the opening video there, but I do find it easier for me to blend like lengthways rather than side to side. So I am going to use three Distress Oxide colors. I have Faded Jeans, Chipped Sapphire, and Black Soot. And I'm kind of aiming to create a winter night. It's kind of what I'm going for here. It snows a lot here. I'm in Canada, if you guys don't know, and it snows a lot here. So my aim with this card was kind of trying to create what I think it would look like if you looked out your window into a snowy night. So that's kind of where I was going with the darker blue and then into the black soot, kind of creating like a gradient for a background and having it be just like a calm winter night. It's kind of what I saw when I saw these, the stencil and this die set. So it's kind of what I'm aiming for. So I just blend back and forth. I just have some blending brushes here, and I'm going to blend back and forth my colors until I like the blend. I find the more ink you have on the cardstock, the easier it is to blend between the colors. So you'll see that I'm going to lay a full wash of color down, and then I'm going to go and blend back and forth between the colors until I have a gradient that I enjoy. This takes a bit of practice, but I find oxide inks are stunning for ink blending. So I mean, I love oxide inks. They're probably my favorite ink, but I just think for blending, they're just really stunning for that, and stamping and layering and a whole bunch of things. So they're just a really fun ink to work with. You can see I kind of just worked between the three colors. And once I had a blend that I like, I'm just going to flick on some Perfect Pearls in the color Perfect Pearl. And I just have it mixed up in a little mini mister bottle there with some water, and I'm just flicking it on using the cap from the mini mister. And this is just to add some sparkle and shine to the background and to make it look more like a snowing night. That's just something I really like to do to my cards, but you could add snow in many ways. This is just one of my preferred ways to do it. And once I have it pretty much all over the background, I have another piece of cardstock here. I like to pre-cut my cardstock, so that's why you can see here I kind of have it already the right size of a card front. This would have been slightly easier had I not already pre-cut my cardstock, but I pre-cut all of my cardstock so that it's not a full sheet. So you can see there I just ran it through my die cutting machine, and there is the Birch. This is the Honeybee A2 cover plate. This is the top cover plate. And I didn't want it to be stark white against that blue background. So I did bring in three Copic markers. I have N4, N2, and N0. And I'm starting with N4. And I'm just kind of, like, there's no rhyme or reason to this, honestly. I'm adding the darkest color to the right-hand side of the trees. Just to create some kind of shadowing. I have a tendency towards a left highlight, but there's no right or wrong way to do this, honestly. It would look stunning regardless. It would look stunning if you left it white. I just wanted a little more contrast between the blue background and this kind of white panel of cardstock. And then here you can see I'm just bringing in the N2 and kind of going over any of the areas that I put down the N4. There's no right or wrong way to do this, I promise. It looks a little more difficult than it is. And honestly, I'm not even really being careful with how I'm doing it. I'm kind of just blending out the darker color that I had already laid down with the N2 and kind of just trying to make it so it's a little bit less dark. And I am kind of aiming to have it in every crevice of the tree so that the crevice looks a little bit darker. Where the birch tree kind of crevices are. Also, I took none of the color to the border. I thought that the stark white border would look really pretty with this blue background, so I did leave that completely white. I have no gray going onto that border at all. But you could have cut this out of a colored piece of cardstock instead and kind of skipped this step. I have all the Copic, well, not all of them. I have a bunch of Copics, and I love Copic coloring, so I kind of just chose to do that. So then I brought in the N0 and kind of just blended out the two other colors, and then I brought back in my N4, and I'm just shading a little bit more into the crevices of the trees, just to add a little bit more definition to them. And then I have the stencils. So here are the Honeybee Layering Birch Tree stencils. This is, I believe, the first one. And I have, for this one, I have Hickory Smoke, which is going to be more in the background than the second layering stencil. So I just brought back the same blending brushes and I'm just blending it on top. One of the great things about Oxide inks is that they layer on top of each other fabulously. So when I lift the stencil, you'll be able to see that it's super easy to have it sit on top of the background, but not pull focus from the coloring of the background. Like, you can still see the shimmering pearl powder from the Perfect Pearls. You still see it kind of through the tree, so it kind of gives you that toned down snow look, but it doesn't take away from it, which I think is just one of the best features about these Oxide inks. So once I kind of have that blended on everywhere that I like it, I'm going to lift this stencil up, and then I'm going to put down the second stencil. So here you kind of get to see how cool that looks on the background. And then I brought in the second stencil from that layering stencil set, and now we have Pumice Stone, which is a lighter gray oxide color. So all of the oxide, they're all oxides in this background, just because, again, like I said, I love oxides, and I just thought that the grays looked really nice. Like, I thought about bringing in black soot, but I didn't want them to be that stark. So I kind of opted for a more gray, like a bit more of a muted color palette for it, instead of bringing in something that would be quite bold. So yeah, and then we're going to lift up this stencil and I'll show you how that looks. Yeah. As soon as I can get it up, you see it's kind of stuck to my glass mat there. That's kind of why I like working on the glass mat. It's so easy to blend on top of. And then here you can see I'm just going to stick my panel down on top of it so you can kind of get an idea of what we're going for. So I am going to glue down the die cut panel with some Nuvo Deluxe glue. And I did consider adding a little bit of foam or something kind of behind this to add a bit more dimension, but in the end I kind of opted not to, because I was kind of looking at this as like a window. I didn't want to add too much dimension and then make the trees stand out really far from the background. I thought it might detract a bit from the background. So I'm just kind of putting really thin lines of Nuvo Deluxe glue along all the trees and the border so that it glues down really well. And this is the full front of an A2 card. I didn't trim it down or anything. I love how the border looks, so I opted just to leave it that size. Generally I like to mat everything, but in this case I just thought that it would look really pretty with that white border, kind of like I had matted it, although I hadn't because the die did that. So I just thought that was a really neat look for this card. And now I'm opting not to add a sentiment to this card. You absolutely could. It could be like a winter birthday or something about snow or anything like that, but I opted not to. And now I just had a little bit of white paint out of my stash and I'm just flicking it on for some added snow look. I added this on at the end of gluing everything down just because I kind of wanted it to stand on top of the birch trees in the front as well as the ones in the background and kind of take a little bit of the forefront for this. So the sparkly one's kind of in the background, but this one's up in the foreground. So I am going to use my Nuvo Deluxe glue again just to glue this down to a side fold A2 sized card, which is 5.5 by 4 1/4. And then we're gonna add some gems because I cannot resist. Honestly, this is probably the first time I've made a card that was the full front of an A2 size card, which is a little bit shocking for me because I like to mat things and layer things and border things, but this die plate and the stencils are just so stunning that it didn't need that extra anything, really, except bling, because I can't stop myself and because I find when it snows it's quite magical, so I thought a little bit of glitter would just add something a little bit extra. So I have some Nuvo Pure Sheen Gemstones here. This is the crystal colors, they're clear, and I just added a couple on the background. There's only about 5, I believe, on this whole card, and I'm going to hold this up so you can check it out right in center there. So here we go. This is the card that I've made for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed this card. If you liked it, please leave a like, leave a comment, and consider subscribing to the channel. There's lots of amazing creators in this team and lots of amazing creations happening here. So thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.